Hello, everybody. How are we feeling? How are we doing? We're up very early, even earlier than yesterday, even earlier than qualifying. Although qualifying was worth getting up for, I think. Qualifying was worth getting up for. I believe in Australia. Australia always seems to deliver a little bit of drama here, there, and everywhere. So I'm fine with getting up at this kind of hour. You know, if Monaco was this early, I'm not so sure I'd be here right now. But we are here. Hello, everybody in the chat. Kalash, first Formula One race that I'm actually watching. Let's hope it's an absolute banger. Because last year's Australian Grand Prix was mental. 3 red flags last year in Australia. So we could see something a little bit insane. Not him, nice as well. Sugary Stash, thank you for subscribing. Appreciate you stopping by. London is Red is indeed back. Did you watch the football last night? Did you watch England, Brazil? On a complete tangent from Formula One straight away. Hello, everybody. Nandini as well. How am I going? I'm going all right. It's early. It's early is what I will say. But more than happy to be up, more than happy to do this a couple of times a year. I'm very, very lucky in the fact that obviously a lot of the races are European. I am European, and therefore I can do it a couple of times when, you know, the Australian fans have to do this ridiculously often. And American fans as well have to do this ridiculously often throughout the middle portion of the season. I can do it a few times at the start and at the end. I don't mind at all. It is 3 a.m. indeed. JD Box triple Alpine DNF. You know, got committed there to the Alpine. What's the opposite of a hype train? Disaster train. 1:30 a.m. in the that's fair enough. Yeah, don't watch that. It wasn't even worth watching. It was a pretty dull game, to be honest. And then Endrick scored in the 80th minute or something like that. Jack, hello, from Spain. Jackal, Spain, 49. Were you born in 49? Old guy. Hopefully Ferrari will win. I'm optimistic about Ferrari, to be fair. Should we have a little look at the Australian Grand Prix? Because we're coming into it this year. 4 DRS zones, remember, in Australia. So there's lots of opportunities for overtaking. Although it's kind of 2 DRS zones smushed together. Because there's 2 DRS detection points, 4 DRS zones. So you get DRS down to turn 1 and then down to turn 3, but from the same detection point. So if you manage to get that overtake done into turn 1, it actually gives you a big benefit down in towards turn 3 because you can keep using DRS even though you're now ahead of your opponent. And then similar thing as they enter sector 2 through that kind of sweeping left to right, which I think is one of the most underrated maybe parts of a Formula 1 track. I think that sweeping left to right as you finish the second sector, going into the third sector, you get DRS down in there as well. I like that part of the Melbourne track. I'm not going to lie to you. I do appreciate, obviously, that's the bit that they changed up. If you're a classic Formula 1 fan, the Melbourne Grand Prix has had a few iterations, and that was the most recent change. Oh, there's been a few changes recently, but that kind of sweeping left-right as you exit the second... if you exit the second sector and enter the third sector. Yeah, I was right. Hello, everybody. Rurat as well. Elio, ready for something? This feels different. Love that. Love that. Hopium right there. Mallory in there as well. Good morning indeed. Ace57, hello. Jax to the max from America. Quali was at midnight yesterday. That's also commitment. It's commitment the other way around, isn't it? Like, I feel like I'm better when I have to stay up and watch a race, if that makes sense. Whereas the other side of things, when I have to get up to watch a race, like it was teetering on the edge. I was debating just staying up until 4 a.m., but I think I'd have actually been a zombie at that point. Do I support any other London club? I'm very curious. Not really, no. Not really, no. I quite like Fulham, but for no real reason. Raise predictions. Shall we get into it then? Let's get into some predictions. I asked you guys over on the community tab a couple of days ago. When would it have been? Maybe Wednesday, Thursday over on the community tab. If you're not subscribed to the channel, by the way, the community tab over on the community tab is really popping. Like, they've got a great community of fans over there that just get involved in. There's various polls. I do some quizzes every now and then based on content that I'm doing. I ask you guys for your opinions a lot of the time, which then leads me into making videos and getting your opinions involved in them. But let's have a little look, because I asked for some of your predictions. FC192 went for a podium of Sainz Leclerc with Max at the top of it. So a double Ferrari podium, which could happen today. Sergio Perez dropping back down to the grid. We'll get to that in a moment. Best team Ferrari, surprise Lando Norris. I do appreciate that, because I do think the McLaren is going to be a bit quicker here in Australia than it has been in the last couple of weekends. Then he's got struggle Sergio Perez, which has slightly come true already. And of course, the flop team being Alpine. By NFT, great name. As podium, Max, winner, Max, flop, Alpine. Straight to the point. The polar opposite ends of the spectrum from buy NFT. Maybe don't buy NFTs. Rinnereth, Max Leclerc, Lando. Surprise Daniel Ricciardo. Might be a bad surprise. A negative surprise, possibly. A struggle Lance Stroll. Okay, yeah. Qualified okay, but there we go. Harris, Max, Carlos, Charles. Everyone's got double Ferrari on the podium. Nobody having faith in Sergio Perez to keep up this momentum that he has shown over the first couple of races. Got to remember, Sergio Perez picked up 2 podiums in a row, 2 second places in a row. And yeah, people are like, nah, Carlos Sainz, appendicitis, back on the podium straight away. Best team Ferrari, surprise Mercedes. Now, I think some people have been surprised by the Mercedes car this weekend in the fact that it really hasn't clicked in the way that people were expecting. I was kind of expecting a similar thing to what we're seeing from McLaren. A little bit like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia would be a bit tricky. There'd be some problems, but by the time you get to Australia, a track that is kind of better suited to the car, they'd have maybe been able to get over them and sort of reset a touch. That just hasn't been the case. It has been the case for McLaren. You know, you're looking at Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri qualifying quite well yesterday. George Russell continuing to kind of put in the best performance possible for the Mercedes team, it has to be said. And Lewis Hamilton, absolutely nowhere. Like, all of his faith in this Mercedes project and this Mercedes car for 2024 seems to have already evaporated after 3 Grand Prix. Like, we're what, an 1/8 of the way through the season, and Lewis already had enough is effectively what has happened. We've got Colby said Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc. Kick Sauber as the surprise team. Maybe a cheeky little point is on the cards for Zhou Guanyu before we head to Japan, and then of course his home Grand Prix. And then Alonso and Aston Martin will struggle and be the flop team. Moderately came true yesterday, but I feel like Alonso and Stroll can only really achieve so much at this moment in time. It's clearly the 5th fastest car by sort of a considerable margin. They're quite far behind 4th. They're quite far off 6th, though. So it's like bit of a mix. Getting some predictions in the chat. Perez will not be there to protect Max. That's very true. Ferraris can sort of go for opposite strategies, try something a bit different. Max winner, podium, Max Sainz, Lando, love that. Surprise Sonoda, of course. Best team, Red Bull or Ferrari, struggle. Sir Lewis, of course, flop team, Mercedes. Oh, London is red, not having any faith in the German team being able to fix it come race day. We've got Frozen, winner Piastri, podium Piastri, Lando, Max. Woo, I mean, I could go for a little bit of that. I could go for a little bit of that. Sainz got to be on the podium, says Munib. I feel like everyone's kind of knocking on the door. Perez, Ferrari, everyone's got Ferraris, Red Bulls, and then a dabble of McLarens up there on the podium. A lot of people not having too much faith in Mercedes turning this around. And also, similarly, Aston Martin, Alpine seem to be the ones that are receiving a little bit of negativity in their direction. Perez has a chance to cause Red Bull. I mean, yeah, Perez has definitely still got a chance from dropping down the grid. Shall we have a little discussion about that then? Let's look at the quali board from yesterday. Max Verstappen, pole position, starts at the front of the grid for what feels like the infinite time. It does feel like Max Verstappen is always there or thereabouts at this point in his career, and the Red Bull continuing to do what it does best in 2024. Of course, Max Verstappen 2 from 2. Can he go 24 from 24? I'd be surprised, but Max Verstappen has done incredible things in the past. Logan Sargent should deserve driver of the day. Might struggle, but maybe for, taking the drop allows him to get there. The Australian anthem starting. That means we've got about 10 minutes left to go. Whoa, that is an outfit. Some sort of... Oh, no, she's not actually wearing that. It's some sort of a curtain behind her. I thought she was wearing that, like, big fan that is behind her, if people are watching on Sky. Anyhow, Max Verstappen starts from pole position with Carlos Sainz in second place. A lot of faith in Carlos Sainz, even though he's bouncing back from obviously missing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. A lot of people have faith that he's going to be able to continue the good start to the season that he had in Bahrain and be right up there. And he is second place. Lando Norris in third after everything. Charles Leclerc fourth place. Is going to be interesting to see what he can do there. Whether or not Lando Norris is going to be right in that mix, it's going to be a tough afternoon for Lando to really keep up with the Ferraris, in my opinion. But, he's starting there. He can maybe set the pace and hopefully get himself into a position where maybe he can just hang on to the back of Carlos Sainz, get that DRS working for him, and just hold on to the back of the Ferrari. And, of course, his ex-teammate, Charles Leclerc, in fourth place, will be trying to stop him from doing that, though. Oscar Piastri will be also trying to hold on in his home Grand Prix. Didn't realise that Oscar Piastri was a little bit of a contentious one in Australia. I was listening to an Australian podcast, sort of building up to this one, just to get sort of eyes on the ground, what people were thinking about the Formula One race in Melbourne. And I didn't realise that, because Oscar Piastri displaced Daniel Ricciardo, there were quite a lot of Australian fans that were not massively pleased with Oscar. But I think he's kind of won them round over the course of his first season in Formula One. They've realised they are looking at a proper talent in Oscar Piastri. And it's probably good to get behind him in the long run. Sergio Perez, a 3-place penalty. So for those of you that didn't see this, he picked up a 3-place penalty for impeding. It was Nico Hülkenberg during qualifying yesterday. So Sergio Perez actually drops to 6th place. Would have been starting in the podium places. But I feel like still from 6th place, he's got an opportunity to be looking forwards rather than backwards as Sergio Perez, and being able to move in a positive direction throughout the race. George Russell, 7th place. As I said before, I think that's probably the best that the Mercedes could have done. You're looking at those top 3 teams. Ferrari and Red Bull in particular look to be the dominant 2 this year. And then it feels like when the McLaren car is at a Grand Prix it suits, it will be the 3rd fastest, maybe even the 2nd fastest. When it is at a track it doesn't suit, it will be more in the mix with the Mercedes and the Aston Martins, who are just behind. Yuki Tsunoda is the surprise package there in the top 10, and surprisingly starting in 8th place. You know, usually if you sneak into the top 10 this season, I feel like you're going to be starting from 10th, but the Aston Martins having a little bit of a stumble in qualifying. Fernando Alonso in particular making a little error down towards turn 6, very similar to what we saw from Alex Albon earlier on in the weekend, but not quite colliding with the wall in the same way. So Alonso starts down in 10th. Keep an eye on Yuki though, because the race pace of the RB, yeah, not him has just put it, dropping, struggling a ton. Oh, sorry, you're talking about Daniel Ricciardo. But I do think that Yuki Tsunoda could drop back a couple of places. Because if you look, the RB's race pace in the first 2 Grand Prix hasn't been exceptional. There have been areas where it struggled, even in the hands of Yuki Tsunoda. And yeah, it's most certainly struggled in terms of Daniel Ricciardo's positioning, but we'll get to the Australian a little bit later. First and foremost, we have to talk about Lewis Hamilton, a surprise drop out of the top 10, which allowed Yuki Tsunoda to jump into the top 10, but Lewis Hamilton starts from 11th place, and he was not happy at all yesterday. Clearly has lost quite a lot of faith in the Mercedes car being able to deliver what he needs it to, and just really struggling with the Mercedes car at this moment in time. The balance not quite right for him. Then we've got Alex Albon justifying Williams' decision, I would say, in 12th place. He needed a good qualifying session, did Alex Albon, considering everything that's happened over the course of this weekend. To catch you up, Alex Albon basically destroyed a Williams car in free practice. One, because Williams don't have a spare chassis, they were unable to run Alex Albon's car or repair Alex Albon's car to an extent that they had to then swap the chassis for Alex Albon and Logan Sargent, meaning Logan Sargent has to miss out of the Australian Grand Prix, and they have opted to put Alex Albon into Logan Sargent's chassis. So Alex Albon starts from 12th place. Logan Sargent starts from nowhere. As you can see, only 19 drivers on the grid. Get yourself some coffee. I'm waning already, aren't I? Valtteri Bottas, 13th place. Kevin Magnussen at 14th place. I feel like I just need the race start, the adrenaline, to push me over the edge. But Bottas in 13th place with Kevin Magnussen at 14th. The higher rated of their two team drivers. Bottas getting ahead of Joe, Magnussen getting ahead of Hulkenberg a little bit surprisingly. Most people have expected Hulkenberg to be that top driver, specifically in qualifying, because he has been putting in the performances this year, Nico Hulkenberg, and would have probably outqualified his teammate in Saudi Arabia as well, had it not been for the reliability issue. Esteban Ocon was the final driver of Q2. He's going to start in 15th place. And that man, Nico Hulkenberg, who's the only man, remember, in those back 5 teams to pick up a point so far this season, thanks to some interesting defensive maneuvers from his teammate in Saudi Arabia, starts in 16th place. Pierre Gasly, who, remember, last year was incredibly quick here, starts in 17th place. It's not going to be a battle with the Ferraris for him this time around, unfortunately, but a battle maybe from 17th place up to the points in an Alpine is the best that he could hope for, and an unlikely thing to happen. Daniel Ricciardo, let's talk about him then, because there's a few people in the chat touching on Danny Rick. Will Danny Rick stay at RB, says Nandini, or dropping for next year? I mean, with the performances like we have seen, I'm not sure RB can really justify keeping hold of him, let alone Red Bull putting him in that second seat alongside Max Verstappen. I think that's just going to be a no-go, effectively, from the Red Bull team with this kind of performance in mind. Is he going to be able to keep his RB seat? Liam Lawson is knocking on the door. It's going to be interesting. I feel like there's still a long way to go. I made a little video about it in the middle of the week. That wasn't, the longest video in the world, biggest deep dive. But I did just have a few concerns about Daniel Ricciardo this season, and the fact that I'm getting more Daniel Ricciardo McLaren vibes than Daniel Ricciardo Renault vibes, which is not a positive for the Australian, considering how his time at McLaren ended. I do think Daniel Ricciardo's just kind of maybe hit a little bit of a wall, just can't adapt to these new style cars maybe, or has lost a little bit too much confidence in his driving ability. That obviously he turned it on for that tyre test, and he turned it on for Mexico last season. But apart from that, you know, we had the injury as well, which then just made him drop out a bit. I don't know. I'm just not sure where Daniel Ricciardo sits. And then Zhou Guanyu, really tough from him yesterday. Probably should have been up towards where Valtteri Bottas is, but picked up a little bit of damage during Q1. Smashed his front wing whilst on a fast lap, and he didn't even notice it had happened, but caused him to lose enough downforce that unfortunately that was the end of that for him. That is our starting grid, though. I feel like people to keep an eye on, and you know, drivers who are likely to change positions early. Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, that's going to be a little battle from the start of the Grand Prix. Of course, Sergio Perez surging up the grid, likely. I feel like Yuki Tsunoda is going to be under quite a lot of pressure from the Aston Martins behind. Is going to have to really put in some work. Similar, Alex Albon leading that train of the cars at the back of the pack. I feel like is also going to be under quite a lot of pressure straight away. So keep an eye on Alex Albon, Lewis Hamilton, that kind of battle in 11th, 12th place as well. There's a few areas of possible movement towards the beginning of this Grand Prix and some battles that will definitely start to develop towards the pit stops. Let's have a little look at what the drivers are saying on the radio. Lando Norris, it's not working. I hope that is not the car and maybe just the radio that is not working for Lando Norris. Maybe a setting or two. Why is it so early? It is, yeah. Just insanely early. But again, I said this at the beginning, on track. When, you know, most of the races are European, I feel like we can't massively complain. Sammy, I love you too. Thank you very much. Mercedes should pick up Carlos Sainz if they're smart. I feel like most teams should try and pick up Carlos Sainz, to be honest with you. I feel like Carlos Sainz is an upgrade on Sergio Perez. I feel like Carlos Sainz is an excellent second driver in that Mercedes seat and will probably, I was going to say probably displace George Russell as the number one, but could definitely at least get in the mix with George Russell and be in the fight to become that number one driver at Mercedes. And then any team back from that, Carlos Sainz would be an upgrade on one of the drivers or not, right? Carlos Sainz is definitely an upgrade on Lance Stroll. Carlos Sainz is definitely an upgrade on both RB drivers, both stake drivers. Carlos Sainz is just an upgrade everywhere that he goes. Do I teach chemistry? I do not. I teach physics. Physics, some maths sometimes too. But that is a very tangential thing to say. As a Brit who works night, this race start time is good. Yeah, that's fair, Aaron. Yeah, those of you that work nights, I can appreciate that. What's the time there? Kind of mid-afternoon. Can't remember now. Mid-afternoon in Melbourne. But we are about a couple of minutes away. As you can see, 90 seconds. George Russell and Sergio Perez being told to fire up their cars. Kevin Magnussen in there as well. Just over 90 seconds. Tyre update. Alonso on the hard tyre. Lewis on the soft. So Max Verstappen being told about Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Because they're going to be in the contention for winning the race, aren't they? What a weird thing to tell Max about. Newell, thank you so much for the subscription. Appreciate that, mate. Getting towards kind of 70k now. Out of nowhere. Rocketed up. Silver play button. I want to say within touch and distance, but I don't want to be that person. I think I just dream of one is the problem. I really dream of having one of those play buttons. And therefore, it just... in the back of my mind, every single time I see even one subscriber. Like, even when I hit my first 100 subscribers, I was like, back of my mind, I want one of those. Want one of those. Prediction McLaren podium. I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I might actually lose my mind if that happens. 30 seconds, 15 seconds being told on the radio is a little bit of a tyre update. Everybody on the medium compound tyre to start with, apart from Fernando Alonso on the hard compound tyre, Lewis Hamilton on the soft compound tyre. So Hamilton may be going for a move early, sort of thinking, okay, I can run at this a little bit early, get the soft compound tyres on, try and make up places, but he's going to have to pit a little bit sooner than he maybe would like to. Here we are then. We are on the formation lap. Max Verstappen is going to get us underway. We'll move to the more detailed board in a second. We just change a couple of settings. And then we are going to be live and ready and raring to go. What do I want? That maybe? My trackboard is frozen, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Give it a sec. They're on the formation lap anyway, so it should be fine. Should be fine. Love from India. Oh, 9:30 in the morning. That's the perfect race time for me, I think. You get up, first thing, race on. Love that. The minimap is frozen at this moment in time, but we will get there in a second, yeah. We can move towards it. It's just loading behind the scenes, I think. But it should be sorted by the end of the formation lap. Keep up the good work. Sure, we'll have a play button soon enough. Thank you, Jax, to the max. Hope so. When is the race? Right now, Mallory. We're seeing Max Verstappen coming down the pit lane. Well, not the pit lane. The pit straight. Oh, right, I need to wake up. Need to wake up. The pit straight. Taking to his box. Ooh, but you can see there, the car's coming around the final bend. Daniel Ricciardo at the back of the pack. Why do some of the tyres have little diagonal lines on them? They are used tyres. Great spot. So you'll notice next to it, it says how many laps those tyres have done. And if it has a number, they're used tyres. So they're starting on used tyres at Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso. Is lights out, though. Max Verstappen gets us underway at the Australian Grand Prix. Under pressure straight away from Carlos Sainz, although Carlos Sainz also has to band and battle with Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc gets through in 4th place still. And everybody manages to get through the first corner without too much drama. Not very Australian Grand Prix. We saw last year how chaotic that can be. George Russell under quite a bit of pressure from Yuki Tsunoda as well. Wasn't expecting that. Hamilton on the soft compound tyre making moves. And there's Yuki Tsunoda actually dropping a place. I think he was trying to battle too much with George Russell and dropped behind Lance Stroll. Valtteri Bottas with an insane start jumps up into 11th place with Fernando Alonso dropping a couple of positions backwards on the hard compound tyre, maybe just struggling to get them right up to working temperature on the formation lap. Daniel Ricciardo, Zhou Guanyu at the back of the pack. Zhou's starting from the pit lane, of course. Will have to catch up to this train of cars. Oh my goodness me. Sergio Perez has dropped behind George Russell and is trying to get back in front of him. But it's so dusty off the racing line. You can see the dust being kicked up by the Red Bull car. What happened to Joe? Started from the pit lane. They changed a few components of his state car, although he was starting from 19th place anyway, so it didn't make too much of a difference. Fernando Alonso makes a move on Valtteri Bottas, gets it done, up into 11th place, does Fernando Alonso. But DRS will now be enabled, of course, after the first lap of this Grand Prix. So we're going to see a few DRS trains starting to emerge. Carlos Sainz has done really well to keep within 0.2 of Max Verstappen at this point in the Grand Prix. Lando Norris is dropping off the back. I was saying this. Lando Norris needed to keep up with Carlos Sainz. Otherwise, it's going to be a tricky task to keep Charles Leclerc at bay. Gasly dropped a ton. Where? Can't see. Oh, Carlos Sainz makes a move. And it's Carlos Sainz into the lead. Oh my goodness me. Carlos Sainz goes for it up the inside. And Carlos Sainz into the lead of the Grand Prix. In fact, what I'm just very quickly going to do is, because the track map seems to be a little bit behind, I'm just going to update that before we get too deep into the Grand Prix itself. Let me pop this here. Let's apply that. So it's going to just quickly reset for a moment. Might take a minute or two. But it'll be worth it because then it'll be actually in line with the race. But Carlos Sainz is into the lead of the Grand Prix here in Melbourne. Carlos Sainz dropping, going on board. Carlos Sainz round the outside into turn 9. And Max Verstappen just caught sleeping a little bit there, from my opinion. Didn't really put up too much of a defense to Carlos Sainz. And Sainz now disappearing. Fastest first, second and third sector from the Ferrari. And now we've got Carlos Sainz really pushing to take the lead of this Grand Prix and get out of DRS range of Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen with the DRS on the Red Bull. Max Verstappen not used to seeing the back of another car in a Grand Prix for a very long time. Lando Norris, though, holding on to third place. Verstappen on the radio. The car is loose. It's just sliding around for Max Verstappen. He can't quite hold on in the way that he wants to, but you can see Carlos Sainz going down towards turn 1 now, still holding on to the lead of this Grand Prix. Thank you, Dream, for subscribing to the channel. It froze. I know it froze. I know it. I froze it. I froze it. No, I was just resetting it because it was a bit behind on where the actual live stream was. So I was just resetting it very quickly. But it takes a minute or so to reset. Oh! And Max Verstappen's going to be out of this race. There's something going wrong with Max Verstappen's rear right tyre. There is a lot of smoke coming off the back of that Red Bull. That does not look good. That looks terrible. Max Verstappen with a reliability issue. Not something that we've seen in a very long time. And Max Verstappen has dropped behind Lando Norris and Leclerc. And it's going to be, oh my goodness me, Verstappen is falling apart. Not something that we've seen. And Max Verstappen's rear right tyre is the rear right. Oh, it's his brakes. His brakes are gone. He's going to try and nurse the car back towards the pit lane. But Max Verstappen dropping all the way to the back of the pack. Oh my goodness me. So Carlos Sainz leads the Grand Prix. And is it me or is it always Carlos Sainz? Singapore last year, the only Red Bull non-victory, Carlos Sainz. First Red Bull non-victory of 2024, Carlos Sainz. Is it, Mira? Is Carlos Sainz a little bit underrated, maybe, as a driver? But Max Verstappen's car on fire. The fire extinguishers come out from the marshals. And the Red Bull team are going to try and get that tyre off and see if they can fix whatever is happening. Oh my goodness me. There is a lot of debris and a lot of smoke. And that is going to be a real brake failure. And that is a Max Verstappen DNF, ladies and gentlemen. In the pit lane, and Max Verstappen is out of the Grand Prix. A reliability issue, the rear right tyre falling apart. And Carlos Sainz then is leading this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen already out of the Red Bull car and into the Red Bull garage. He knows that nothing he could do there. Takes off his helmet and he'll disappear into the background, I would imagine. But wow. First retirement of the Grand Prix, and it's Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz then, the man who Ferrari are getting rid of at the end of this season, is now the man to lead the Grand Prix. Sergio Perez still down in 6th place, still stuck behind a Mercedes car. And Max Verstappen not very happy at all. Talking to a couple of the Red Bull engineers, and I think that was an effing stupid there from Max Verstappen, but I imagine tempers are flaring and a lot of adrenaline going through Max Verstappen right now. All on Checo indeed for the Red Bull team, but Carlos Sainz currently with a 1.6 second lead over Lando Norris in the McLaren, and the McLaren of Lando Norris now under pressure from Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc has got to be looking at this devastatingly close to being there with Carlos Sainz. Needs to get the McLaren out of his way, and we could see a real battle between the two Ferraris, but at the moment Lando Norris doing more than enough to keep Charles Leclerc at arm's length. Oscar Piastri also doing exceptionally well in the McLaren, it has to be said, to hold on to the back of this pack. George Russell causing Sergio Perez a massive headache in 6th place. He just can't get past the Mercedes car and needs to as soon as he possibly can, because the Mercedes is so much slower than the rest of the pack. You can see George Russell already 3 seconds off the back of Oscar Piastri after 7 laps, losing about half a second a lap at this point. Why is Daniel Ricciardo so far behind? Just not good. It's just not good. Hasn't had the best of starts as Daniel Ricciardo. But you can see Lance Stroll also doing really well to get up into 7th place. Has got past Yuki Tsunoda and has maintained that position. Yuki Tsunoda, though, holding on for dear life in front of Lewis Hamilton. And it was always going to be a real task for Yuki Tsunoda to hold on to the point-scoring places. But not only has he done that, he's held on to 8th place, which is a stunning point-scoring performance if he can get there. Obviously, still a long way to go in this. And Lewis Hamilton on the soft compound tyre. Oh, that is a big chunk of brake that has jumped off of Max Verstappen's car on lap 3 of the Grand Prix. Looking at the replay, and yeah, that car was never going to come back, was it? The Red Bull team took the... he brakes to come into the pit lane, and the whole braking system. Be interesting to hear what actually happened. The entire brake massively overheating, and Lewis Hamilton already in the pits. Lewis Hamilton drops in then, couldn't be bothered with the battle with Yuki Tsunoda, and decides to go into the pits. And Kevin Magnussen also pitting as well. Daniel Ricciardo has pitted, and Zhou Guanyu has pitted too. So we're looking at Hamilton backwards. Albon has also pitted as well. So you can see next to the tyre and the lap says how many stops they have made. You can see that the teams that have made 1 stop already. Going for Plan A. Plan A, Carlos Sainz still leads this Grand Prix by 2 seconds. Then Charles Leclerc is still within DRS range of Lando Norris. But Norris doing an exceptional job, just putting the car in the right place, causing a real headache for Charles Leclerc. And Leclerc dropping actually back into the possible grip of Oscar Piastri, and Charles Leclerc could be looking backwards rather than forwards here. because Oscar Piastri right underneath the rear wing of the Ferrari. Has it got the straight line speed, though, down towards turn 1? Possibly not. Box for George Russell coming into the pits too. So a lot of drivers going for a very, very early pit stop here and believing that they can swap onto the hard compound tyre and possibly even go to the end of the Grand Prix. So going for the undercut with the hard compound tyre. George Russell is going to come out still at the front of that pack in front of Lance Stroll. Carlos Sainz leading this Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas with a very slow stop again. What is wrong with the stake tyres, man? That is the 3rd Grand Prix in a row that they have had a slow pit stop on the front tyres. What is actually happening with that stake team? It just makes no sense. Carlos Sainz on the radio. Carlos Sainz happy on this tyre. Wants to open up the gap. Does Carlos Sainz? And to be fair, he's doing a good job of doing that. Well, here it goes then. Carlos Sainz fastest lap of the Grand Prix while Charles Leclerc comes into the pits. And Oscar Piastri is going to cover off the Ferrari of Leclerc, whilst Lando Norris continues. Sergio Perez still out on track. Alonso still out on track. Tsunoda comes into the pits, though. Ocon into the pits as well. So everybody getting their pit stop out of the way early on. Get in, make their pit stop. Let's have a little look, actually, at the sector times, just very quickly, to see where people are at with these sectors. Carlos Sainz, quickest in the 1st and 3rd sector, even without the DRS as well. So you can just see Carlos Sainz has a real grip on this race at this moment in time and is really flying in the Ferrari car. You've then got Fernando Alonso in the 1st sector. I think that's probably with the DRS. Oscar Piastri putting in some really good, solid lap times as well until the final sector. That's where it is for Oscar Piastri, because I was thinking Oscar Piastri is getting closer and closer to Charles Leclerc, but actually in the final sector, where he's obviously coming up to the pit straight and is going to be trying to make that move down in towards turn 1, just hasn't got the pace to do it there, Oscar Piastri. Whereas still, Charles Leclerc is not the quickest, but it's that final sector where if Oscar Piastri can just jump up this order a touch, he'll be there. Lando Norris really struggling in the middle sector, it has to be said. Possibly that's where he's losing out to Carlos Sainz, and Carlos Sainz just making that move, although Carlos Sainz also missing out in the middle sector. So that makes me wonder whether that's just a DRS thing, and the cars that obviously have got DRS are just looking much, much quicker through that middle sector. You're then looking towards the back of the pack. You're looking at Daniel Ricciardo. It's 14th, 18th, 13th, still struggling with that tyres. The Haas is not looking quick at all here so far. Gasly also struggling. Ocon, it's good in the 1st sector. Gasly's good in the 2nd sector. But again, it's marginal gains from those guys in those sectors at this moment in time. Let's go back to the track map and see where we are, though. Carlos Sainz still leads this Grand Prix as it is. Lando Norris in 2nd place, 4 or so seconds behind, though, now Lando Norris. And Carlos Sainz really turning up the heat. And Charles Leclerc is under pressure. Ooh. And Charles Leclerc battling now with the Haas for 5th place, and Charles Leclerc gets the move done. Oscar Piastri trying to follow as well, and Oscar Piastri also having to make his way past Pierre Gasly. Carlos Sainz. We're now going plan B for Carlos Sainz. They just need to worry about the undercut here. I don't want them to go too long on this. Could be a really tough ask for them. Oscar Piastri going through into 6th place, still behind Charles Leclerc, but is now 2nd off the back of the Ferrari after having to make his way past Gasly, and Hulkenberg. So everybody from Fernando Alonso backwards has already stopped. So we are looking at optimal positions. Oh no, sorry, Hulkenberg and Gasly have not stopped as of yet. Look at Sainz pull away. Ferrari need to apologize for letting that boy go. I feel like I can understand it. And I'm going to have to keep saying this throughout the entire season. I can understand why they want to bring Lewis Hamilton in. But Carlos Sainz is an absolutely brilliant driver. Like, every single team should be offering Carlos Sainz a contract at this point. Shame that Mercedes can't fight for a win today. Just not there. Pace nowhere near. It's going to be the Ferraris and the McLarens. Between the two of them, kind of eking it out for podium places in this one by the looks of things, because Sergio Perez also just not really pulling up any trees at this moment in time. Ooh, Sergio Perez overdid it on these tyres. Is that going to be Sergio Perez coming into pit fairly soon then? We are on lap 12 of those medium tyres for Sergio Perez, completing a 13th lap on them. Sergio Perez, you'd imagine, will want to get in and out very, very soon. Struggling with the grip. I thought they fixed their issues. Mercedes are Mercedes at this moment in time. It's very difficult to know what Mercedes is going to turn up to a weekend. But Lewis Hamilton really struggling down in 11th place. George Russell not having the best of times, down in 9th. Now has to try and get past Gasly and Hulkenberg, who are on the opposite strategy. Not fun at all, though. Hulkenberg obviously started on the hard compound tyre. Alonso started on the hard compound tyre as well. So they're going super long, and then they might strap some soft compound tyres on towards the end of the Grand Prix. And we'll see some very quick times from Hulkenberg and Alonso towards the end. Maybe they can make up some positions there. Back to the front, though, Carlos Sainz is absolutely rattling around in his Ferrari. 7 seconds now the gap to Lando Norris. And you thought, you know, Max Verstappen disappeared into the distance when he was leading Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz is doing exactly the same thing, just absolutely disappearing into the distance. He's 23 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. Make that 24. Charles Leclerc on fresh hard compound tyres as well. So it's looking like Carlos Sainz is going to be able to get in and out, and it will still be ahead of his teammate by a considerable margin at this point. But pumping in the lap times. You can see Charles Leclerc at 122.2. Carlos Sainz matching that at 122.2 as well on the medium tyre. We were expecting the medium tyre to kind of last 15 or so laps. So Carlos Sainz, I would say, is on the strategy I was more expecting. But everybody else going for that reverse strategy, coming in super early, getting on the hard compound tyre. Lando Norris, box on the radio. Brakes on when you come to a stop. Lando is in. Let's get our pace up. Carlos Sainz is being told to push even harder on this medium set. Maybe just absolutely rinse the life out of them. There is Lando Norris coming in. And a good stop. 2.6 seconds from the McLaren team. They're out once again. Sergio Perez comes in behind him. It'd be interesting to see where Sergio Perez comes out in the Red Bull. Tsunoda down in 12th place now. Has lost that position to Lewis Hamilton. Let's see where Perez comes out. And Perez comes out in the path of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's right under the rear wing of the Red Bull straight away. Is Hamilton going to go for a move on Sergio Perez down towards turn 3? No, not this time around. Sergio Perez having enough to keep Lewis Hamilton at arm's length at this point. Verstappen is indeed out. A rear right brake issue for the Netherlands driver means that he is the first retirement of the Grand Prix. And of course, Logan Sargent not taking part in the Grand Prix this weekend, thanks to Alex Albon crashing in free practice 1. So 18 drivers remain. The stake cars really struggling. Some poor pit stops once again from the stake team in 17th and 18th place. Daniel Ricciardo also running around towards the back of the pack in 16th. Keep your eye on Yuki Tsunoda. in 12th place. Looks like the team that are most likely to maybe battle for some points this weekend in the RB. Hamilton, though, in front. Perez in front in 10th place. We're looking at Hülkenberg and Gasly are very much out of position right now, yet to have stopped. So they are going to fall backwards. And Lewis Hamilton on the radio saying, geez, that car is fast. Talking, of course, about Sergio Perez. And he's not wrong. The Red Bull is absolutely rapid. Here's George Russell making a move on Pierre Gasly and gets past. Pierre Gasly still going around on the medium compound tyre in the Alpine. Maybe going for something a little bit different, but is now going to be at bay, really. Gasly is going to start falling down the order very swiftly because this whole train of cars is catching the back of him. And Russell being able to get past has also released Lance Stroll, who's going to make a move on Pierre Gasly, trying to go around the outside. DRS wide open. Sergio Perez is watching this from behind as well. Gasly trying to remain ahead of Stroll and does just about. The Frenchman holds on to the position just. And there is our race leader, Carlos Sainz, coming into the pits. And Carlos Sainz in... Oh! Hamilton engine failure. Lewis Hamilton is going to have to come to a stop. Is he going to be able to come to a stop somewhere safe, though? Lewis Hamilton trying to find somewhere on the track where he can bring his Mercedes car to a stop, maybe? Or can he continue just rolling on? So that's Lewis Hamilton out of the Grand Prix as well. Some reliability issues coming to the fore. And if Lewis Hamilton stops there, it's going to have to be a safety car. No, he's trying to get towards... There you go, in the escape road. Thank you, Lewis. Jesus Christ, I thought he was going to just stop in the middle of the track. He's going to be a yellow flag in Sector 3 there, where Lewis Hamilton is. But Lewis Hamilton out of the Grand Prix. Looks like an engine failure for the Mercedes car. Imagine Verstappen loses his appendix. Be quicker. Virtual safety car. There you are, virtual safety car. I did think it was a bit of a weird place for Lewis Hamilton to try and stop, but maybe he just didn't have the momentum to actually continue in that vein. The person who's going to benefit from this the most is Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg. Are they going to come in? Maybe a little bit too early, though, because they don't want to go onto the medium tyre as of yet. So Lewis Hamilton coming to a stop in this one. And yeah, the engine just completely cuts out. You can see he's on that kind of back straight / curve. And the marshals very quickly just roll in the Mercedes car out of the way. And Fernando Alonso does decide to pit. I debated it. It's going to be an interesting one. Is he going to go onto the hard compound tyre again? No, fresh set of mediums for Fernando Alonso. Is going to gain massively here as Fernando because he's pitting under the virtual safety car. So he's going to come out in 5th place. Fernando Alonso. Perfect strategy from him so far in this Grand Prix. Nico Hülkenberg is also into the pits with Pierre Gasly as well. Gasly's going to gain quite a bit from this too, under the virtual safety car conditions, although I don't really know how much he's going to gain in terms of positions. I think he's still going to come out in and around the back markers. And then Nico Hülkenberg comes out in 12th place. Hülkenberg ahead of Daniel Ricciardo and on the medium compound tyre. Kevin Magnussen in front. Maybe some team radio there. Let Kevin Magnussen give Nico Hülkenberg the place and he can start to run at the back of Alex Albon, who is in the points with Yuki Tsunoda. We've got, remember, 2 points positions up for grabs now because Max Verstappen, who would usually expected to be in the points, and Hamilton, who would usually expect to be in the points, are out of this Grand Prix. So it's looking like Tsunoda and Albon might be the two to grab a points finish at this moment in time, but still a long way to go. 40 laps of the Australian Grand Prix remain. Us Ferrari fans have our feet swaying in the air. Indeed, Charles Leclerc now up into 2nd place. Has been able to jump Lando Norris in the pit stops. Seemed like Lando Norris had a bit of a tough time in the pit stops because he came out behind his teammate as well. So the optimal strategy going in the way of Oscar once again. And Lando Norris Ooh. Struggling a little bit through the first corner, trying to get those tyres up to temperature. What's happened to Esteban Ocon? Rear left. Rear left, the same as Max Verstappen, just smoking. Very hot brakes for Esteban Ocon, and then Ocon couldn't get away. Just a very, very slow stop for the Alpine. And a little bit scary that rear tyre, very smoky. Hopefully the brakes have cooled down enough for Ocon to continue and didn't just catch fire like we saw with Max Verstappen, because you very quickly shed the carbon fibre around the brakes and then you are out of the Grand Prix, like our championship leader Max Verstappen finds himself down in 19th place and out of the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton has joined him. Ocon had a tear off in the ducts, so it wasn't a brake failure like we saw from the Red Bull, but instead just an issue with a rip-off, a visor rip-off going into the brake duct. Did Max crash? No. Rear right brake failure. Just caught fire and just basically exploded the rear right tyre. Nothing he could do about that whatsoever. And now we head into lap 20 of the Grand Prix. We've got Carlos Sainz leading from his teammate on the fresher tyres as well. So Charles Leclerc is going to have to put in some absolute devastating lap times if he's going to get ahead of Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz on the fresher rubber. Oscar Piastri, the lead McLaren as well. Although Lando Norris on the slightly fresher hard compound tyres as well. So we'll have to wait and see whether that battle comes to fruition. Fernando Alonso, though, the real gainer from the virtual safety car there. Virtual safety cars allowed him to come into the pits, put the medium compound tyre on, and Fernando Alonso up into 5th place. And has got a good gap as well. You can see Fernando Alonso basically driving around by himself. George Russell and Sergio Perez a good 5 seconds behind the Aston Martin at this point. Sergio Perez trying to get past George Russell once again. But Russell just seems to have enough to keep the Mexican at bay, at least at this moment in time, even with Sergio Perez being in a Red Bull and having the fresher tyres. Ferrari 1-2. Ferrari are flying this weekend. Absolutely flying. I've got hiccups and it's absolutely killing me. Sergio Perez still behind George Russell. Just watching the onboard of Sergio Perez and just not close enough. Not even near close enough. Oh! And then I say that. Not even near close enough. Then DRS wide open. That Red Bull is so quick. That was ridiculous. Oh my goodness me. I looked away. Sergio Perez, I was looking at the onboard. Wasn't anywhere close to George Russell. Comes through the middle sector. Oh, that red... Sergio Perez, how far is he off the lead? 17 seconds is too far, but Fernando Alonso needs to look in his rear wing mirrors because that Red Bull, that was obscene. That was crazy, that overtake from Sergio Perez. But he's up into 6th place and George Russell down in 7th. We then got Lance Stroll in 8th place. So the top 8, as you would expect, considering Hamilton and Verstappen are out of the Grand Prix. And then it is Yuki Tsunoda leading Alex Albon. It's a good 3-second gap there as well. And then another couple of seconds back to Kevin Magnussen in 11th place. So it's looking very good indeed for Tsunoda and Albon at this point. Watch Piastri get a podium and do a shoey. Possibly. Yeah, George Russell as well. Just realizing how fast that Red Bull is through the middle sector. Like, it just doesn't make sense how quick that Red Bull car is through the middle sector. I think this is what it's showing us is like we should be glad Verstappen is out of this Grand Prix, because I'm not sure Carlos Sainz would have been able to live with that. Verstappen in that middle sector would have been ridiculously fast. Sergio Perez is flying. When he's got that DRS through the middle sector, it's obscene. Fastest lap, though, goes to Carlos Sainz as we hit lap 23 of the Grand Prix. And he's just eking out a little bit more of a lead. Just a couple of tenths or so every lap. Moving Charles Leclerc to a couple of seconds back now. And making sure that the Spaniard is holding on to the Grand Prix victory at this point. Still not yet halfway, though. We've got a little bit of time for things to change. Interesting. It's that front left tyre that people are concerned about apparently on the radio. The graining on those tyres. Can they keep the tyres under good condition? We know that was a thing for Ferrari last year as the tyres started to go off before the rest of the grid. Piastri, though, a couple of seconds off Leclerc, couple of seconds then to Norris. Alonso then 8 seconds off the back of the McLarens. There is the Hasses, and there's the driver swap I was expecting to come. Kevin Magnussen allowing Nico Hülkenberg to take the position. Hülkenberg on the opposite strategy, and now on the medium compound tyre. Makes perfect sense for those to swap places. And Max Verstappen out of his race suit, and I imagine heading to the media pen. Not overly happy is our current world champion, but you wouldn't be, to be honest, at this point. And Max Verstappen out of the Grand Prix, just opening up the door for everybody else to have a run at it. And it's that man once again. When Verstappen falls, Sainz rises. Sergio Perez within striking distance of Fernando Alonso within 3 seconds. That is a second a lap. That is obscene. Thank you, Helen, for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed and you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And of course, if you're down there, you might as well hit the like button as well, you know. Hit the like button for fun, just for fun. We try and aim for 100 likes on these streams. I haven't actually checked in as of yet how many likes we're at, but if we can hit 100, that'd be absolutely amazing stuff. So thank you guys very, very much for joining me and watching. Let's get back to it. Fernando Alonso under pressure from Sergio Perez. About to say Carlos Sainz. He's leading the Grand Prix by 3 seconds. No pressure at all on the Spaniard right now. Just putting in lap time after lap time. 4 tenths last lap on his teammate. Once again, the fastest lap of the Grand Prix from Carlos Sainz. Someone has told him to step on the gas, and he is much. Am I streaming every race? I'm here every single race. I'm also here for sprint races, sprint qualifyings, and qualifying sessions as well. Everything is covered here, and we are live for all of them. Thank you very much for subscribing, Person and Shinatu. Love from India. Thank you very much, mate. On track, not joking. Enzo originally picked Hamilton P18. Had to redo it because he was distracted by the doorbell. Unbelievable. That is match fixing, if ever I've heard it. Taron, of course, does predictions versus his dog. Well worth checking out, by the way, the On Track channel. Predictions against his dog, Enzo. And they're keeping a leaderboard. Enzo actually won in Saudi Arabia. I will put that out there. So it's 1-1 currently in my eyes. And I feel like that's a little bit of max fitching going on. No, Sainz needs points. Sainz does need points. After missing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, you felt like that was kind of a... Let's add that on, right? So Carlos Sainz, I feel like, would have probably come 4th in Saudi Arabia. Because Charles Leclerc was very, very quick. So I feel like Carlos Sainz missed out on a good, what? Yeah, probably 12 to 10 to 12 points, I would say Carlos Sainz missed out on. Well, I mean, you can take the Bearman 6 if you want. You can add the Bearman 6 to Carlos Sainz's tally, and we'll call it that. As to where Carlos Sainz would really be if he took part in every single Grand Prix this year. But I don't think he'd be worried about that too much right now. He'll be focused on the possibility of another Grand Prix victory in Ferrari Red. His final season in Ferrari Red, of course. Unless they... Imagine Ferrari, right, get halfway through the season, and they're like, you know what, Lewis, you're washed. We're going to keep Carlos. Keep Carlos. Get rid of Lewis Hamilton. Sack him off. Nico Hülkenberg, though, has closed the gap. And this was the worry for Alex Albon. The Haas on the optimal medium tyre. With the switch from Nico Hülkenberg. Albon's hard compound tyre, 19 laps old at this point. Fresh medium tyres on Hülkenberg. And Hülkenberg is staring at a second 10th place finish in a row. Goodness me. Who would win according to me? In what? This race? Carlos Sainz is flying, mate. He's 4.5 seconds clear of his teammate in second place. His tyres are 7 laps cleaner, and the Ferrari is looking obscene. Here's Sergio Perez, though, looking at the back of Fernando Alonso, and Sergio Perez, on a fresh set of hard compound tyres, does it. Very nice indeed. Oh no, Fernando Alonso's tyres are cleaner. Jesus, oh my God, this Red Bull is just a rocket in a straight line. It's unreal. That middle sector, Sergio Perez can be like 5 seconds behind the other car. He just saunters past them through that middle sector. It's unreal. Carlos Sainz definitely deserves this win. He's been flawless. Absolutely flawless. And you just look at his last lap times. Every single lap, he is like 3 or 4 times quicker than Charles Leclerc. He's just putting it together. Putting it together. Carlos Sainz up there. What, 121.4 from Sainz last lap, or 121.8 from Charles Leclerc? That's all you need to know about it. Oscar Piastri in the 122s. Lando Norris, though, closing the gap to his teammate. Ooh. Lando Norris, is he going to be able to get onto the podium? He's going to have to get past Oscar Piastri. The team are going to allow them to race, is the other thing. Lando Norris, slightly fresher hard compound tyres, has just been slowly closing the gap to his teammate as he's been pressing on the gas. Ooh. And Lando, you can see on the radio there, come on Lando, will swap positions. So if he can get within a reasonable distance, the McLaren team are looking at possibly swapping their drivers around. I mean, it slightly makes sense in that Lando Norris is on the fresher tyres, but at the same time, is Lando Norris really going to catch the back of the Ferraris? I don't think so. So this is Oscar Piastri letting Lando by. Okay. Let's see what Lando Norris can do then from that position. 3 seconds off the back of Charles Leclerc. Slightly fresher tyres on Lando Norris's car. It's going to be tough, though. Going to be tough for Lando Norris. He was a 10th faster than Charles Leclerc last lap, but I think he did have DRS. Not sure, actually. Might just be making that up. Sergio Perez, though, 11 seconds off the back of the McLaren. Maybe that's what they're worried about. They're worried about Sergio Perez, and they don't want to lose both McLaren cars to the Red Bull. But if Sergio Perez can make up the 11 seconds to the back of the McLarens, then only Oscar Piastri will be at risk if Lando Norris can continue on that kind of pace trajectory. Fernando Alonso in 6th place. George Russell holding on to 7th. Has had a bit of a quiet Grand Prix. He's just kind of running around in 7th place. 8 seconds off the back of Fernando Alonso. And then 3 or 4 seconds to the other Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. So it's a George Russell sandwich there. Lance Stroll in 8th place. Yuki Tsunoda still in 9th and under no real pressure. And Nico Hulkenberg managed to get past Alex Albon as Alex Albon came into the pits. So Alex Albon onto his second set of hard compound tyres. You can see there the second pit stop. Alex Albon coming in early. And Lando Norris being told the obvious, I would say there. Could you try and catch up with Charles Leclerc? Yeah, that's what he's going for, isn't it? Daniel Ricciardo into the pits as well. So we're starting to get into the second pit stop window here. Daniel Ricciardo coming in for another set of hard compound tyres as well. So this is going to be the second, and you'd imagine final pit stop for a lot of these cars, unless there is a safety car or a virtual safety car where somebody can make up some positions. But everybody's going to be looking at the times of the likes of Alex Albon to see what those fresh hard compound tyres are going to be able to do and whether or not they need to be dropping in. We did see that the undercut seemed to be the way forward. We saw Oscar Piastri get in front of his teammate using the undercut. Fernando Alonso massively gain. Oh, Max Verstappen. The rear right brake was stuck on. Oh. Wow. Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen moderately actually chill. But I feel like he's had that little bit of time, hasn't he? He's had half an hour or so to calm down. Thank you for Adipa and Iris as well. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Alonso keeping with Checo. Yeah, I feel like that's the thing, right? Alonso kind of dropped behind Sergio Perez, but then has been able to kind of keep within that DRS range. So pretty impressive from the Spaniard. But wily, of course, Fernando Alonso, isn't he? Wouldn't surprise me if Fernando Alonso was kind of expecting Sergio Perez to get past and maybe was holding on to his tyres a touch just so that he could do this and use the DRS to his advantage, hold on to the back of Sergio Perez, and then when the pit stops come around, make sure that he comes out in a nice bit of clean air. Where are we looking? So Fernando Alonso 20 seconds back or so. You're looking at, yeah, around Nico Hulkenberg. So Fernando Alonso is going to come out between Tsunoda and Hulkenberg by the looks of things at this moment in time if he pits now. But they're going to continue to go. You'd imagine those cars are also going to come into the pit. So Alonso is looking really good at this point in time for a good chunk. Get him to 100 likes. Thank you, Toro. Yes, let's. Hello, Kim. I'm late. What happened to Max and Lewis? So Max, it looks like the rear right tyre, the brake was stuck on from lights out, Max Verstappen is saying. The brake was stuck, therefore just overheated and then disintegrated itself on lap 3 of the Grand Prix. Nothing that Max Verstappen could do about that at all. That was why he was having a little bit of a struggle with the rear end of the car, because one of the brakes was just overheating dramatically. And then Lewis had an engine failure. So the Mercedes car dropping out. And you can see Hamilton and Verstappen out of the Grand Prix after 3 laps and 8 laps respectively. Since then, it's been fairly smooth sailing. We haven't seen anything too dramatic at this point in time. I would like to point out Charles Leclerc. It's not going very well at all for Charles Leclerc at this moment in time. 8.5 seconds now, the gap to Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc actually, you know what? I said Lando Norris would struggle maybe to catch up to the back of Charles Leclerc. 3/10 he took off Charles Leclerc last lap. Lando Norris stepping on the gas pedal. And I'll tell you what, Lando Norris is closing in on the back of the Ferrari. Sergio Perez also is just being kept at arm's length, still 12 seconds behind Oscar Piastri in 4th place. Alonso doing an exceptional job to keep himself within DRS of Sergio Perez, but he's not going to try and take that position back anytime soon. I think he's just using that as a little bit of a tow at this point in the race. Then George Russell, a solid chunk of time behind. George Russell, 9 seconds off the back of the Aston Martin. Nearly 10 seconds now. That Mercedes car just not working this weekend. Lance Stroll in 8th place, another 6.5 seconds back. Yuki Tsunoda's doing a proper decent job. 5.5 seconds, the gap to Nico Hülkenberg in 10th place, holding on to 9th, been in the points for basically the entire Grand Prix, has Yuki Tsunoda. That RB under Yuki Tsunoda really clicking into gear all of a sudden. Come on, Norris. Yeah, Lando Norris is on this. 1.5 seconds now, the gap. Charles Leclerc on the radio. Tyres are gone on Charles Leclerc's car. And I mean, he's makes sense the tyres are gone, because Lando Norris is closing in tenths upon tenths every single lap. His tyres are 4 laps younger, Lando Norris's, although they came into this Grand Prix slightly scrubbed. But here you go. Here is Charles Leclerc. Box. And McLaren are coming out as well. Is it going to be Lando Norris? No. Lando Norris continues. I think it's going to be Oscar Piastri covering off the back of Charles Leclerc. No, Piastri continues as well. So McLaren just coming out, maybe doing a little bit of a dummy pit stop. But it seemed like a weird one, because Ferrari were definitely going to pit Charles Leclerc. And where is Leclerc going to come out? Oh, it's going to be right underneath Sergio Perez. He's going to be able to get out. Oh, it's going to be close. Leclerc is literally millimeters ahead of Sergio Perez. And Perez is going to have a little look at the Ferrari. Fernando Alonso there, just in case anything happens. The wily Spaniard waits for a position. And Charles Leclerc manages to just about hold on. Lando Norris doing the opposite of Leclerc. That makes sense. So the McLaren team telling Lando, just do the alternate strategy. And now Lando Norris, you'd imagine, is going to be absolutely trying to get every single ounce of pace out of those tyres. The problem is, Lando Norris, if he pits now, he's going to come out in that pack, right? We saw Charles Leclerc just about got ahead of Sergio Perez. So Lando Norris would also just about maybe get in front of Sergio Perez, and he can't afford to drop behind Sergio Perez at this point in the Grand Prix. So now, do McLaren wait until Red Bull's stop with Sergio Perez to open that gap up a little bit? Maybe. And there is Sergio Perez, box. Okay, now McLaren have a little bit of clear track that they can go into, because I don't think Fernando Alonso is going to be too much of a problem. But Sergio Perez is dropping into the pits. Where's Sergio Perez going to come out? It's going to be in and around that Yuki Tsunoda area as well, isn't it? As we touched upon with Fernando Alonso. And there is Yuki Tsunoda. Perfect. Mate, I should be a strategist. I knew exactly where he was going to come out, because I can add 20 seconds to things. Nico Hülkenberg comes into the pit as well. Zhou Guanyu into the pits too. So Alex Albon is going to start gaining those positions back that he lost on the pit stop. Another slow stop from the stake team. Oh my goodness me. Problem with the wheel nuts down at stake again. It's 3 races in a row and they can't fix their tyres. Jeez Louise. And Zhou Guanyu coming out of the pits and is in last place of the Grand Prix. Norris and Piastri are continuing on their positive trajectory. In fact, Carlos Sainz has slowed down a touch, maybe just holding onto his tyres a little bit. No, he's in traffic. Carlos Sainz there, I can see he's just passed Daniel Ricciardo. And a little bit of traffic for Carlos Sainz is slowing him down a touch. And Alex Albon trying to make the move on Nico Hülkenberg. I thought that was going to get messy. Thought that was going to get messy there. But no, Alex Albon clean. Yuki Tsunoda into the pits as well. Tsunoda needs to stay in front of Albon. I think he will do so. Coming towards the end of the pit straight. Albon coming around the final corner. And Albon claiming Nico Hülkenberg is weaving in front of him. And dangerous defending from the Haas. To be fair, Alex Albon has dropped like 2 seconds off Nico Hülkenberg there. McLaren waiting, watching. Tension is high at McLaren. Lando Norris putting in another 121.6 to Charles Leclerc's 121.9. It's looking good. Just a few more of those, please, Lando. The gap between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc about, 18.5, 19 seconds. 20-second pit stops. It's going to be very, very close indeed. This Ferrari domination is getting boring. Carlos Sainz has done just obscene things today. Carlos Sainz has looked like Max Verstappen. Like, Carlos Sainz has put in a performance that makes it look like he's winning the championship by, 50-odd points. But he's just, I don't even know. Carlos Sainz is so underrated. So underrated. By Ferrari, mainly, is the problem. Lando Norris, though, 9.5 seconds off the lead. Oscar Piastri, another 4.5 seconds behind. Charles Leclerc, though, is the one to keep an eye on. He's stopped twice. Alonso only stopped once. Russell yet to stop for a second time as well. Gasly out of position once again is yet to stop a second time. Valtteri Bottas pit stop. What happened here? That's a quick pit stop. Thank you, Stake, for finally doing a pit stop that actually worked. It's just a shame that neither of the ones beforehand did, and therefore Bottas and Zhou in 16th and 17th place at the back of the pack. Ricciardo also in 15th, Ocon in 14th. They've all been lapped at this point of the Grand Prix, although Carlos Sainz will have to stop once again, whereas all of those cars have stopped twice. So who are we looking at? Gasly yet to have stopped. We're looking at Alonso, Russell yet to have stopped, and the front three are yet to have stopped as well. So only after those guys have pit stopped will we know the true order of things. Although Lance Stroll gets past Pierre Gasly once again. Oh, Oscar Piastri onto the grass. And a front left lockup from Oscar Piastri. That's going to have cost him a good chunk of time. 4 seconds lost there from Oscar Piastri. You can see a 121.5 from Lando Norris, a 125.2 from Oscar Piastri. That mistake from the McLaren driver, and it's box for Oscar Piastri at his home Grand Prix. And I think that is any chance of a podium, which already seemed fleeting, disappearing into nothingness. Box though, Oscar Piastri comes in. Doesn't want to lose out to Fernando Alonso. Is Fernando Alonso within touching distance of that now that Oscar Piastri's had that little mistake? Maybe, Going to be close. Although Fernando Alonso still needs to stop a second time. Where is Fernando? Just coming around the final corner. Tell you what. Lando Norris is also going to have to box too, but Oscar Piastri coming out behind Fernando Alonso. It was a little bit of a worry, and that 4 seconds has just cost him there because he's come out 2 seconds behind Fernando Alonso. So Oscar Piastri now finds himself stuck behind the Aston Martin. I mean, the Aston Martin has got to pit again, which is going to cost him a bit of time. Although Charles Leclerc is now rattling around. Charles Leclerc quicker than Lando Norris by a second there. So have McLaren missed the boat a little bit on this one. Although he's going to have slightly fresher tyres, is Lando Norris. So it could go one of either way. I think Charles Leclerc just had absolutely rinsed his tyres last time around. Now he's on a fresh set, can get those lap times in. Carlos Sainz looking incredibly smooth at the front of the pack. Lewis Hamilton fans are not going to be happy with a Hamilton DNF. I mean, he wasn't really in the mix for anything exciting. It was looking like a just about points finish from Lewis Hamilton anyway. So Carlos Sainz then, box. So it is Sainz, Russell that need to come in still. Alonso, of course, on the medium compound tyre, going a little bit longer. But there's Lando Norris. And yeah, it just feels like McLaren really missed their window there. The window of opportunity opened and closed very swiftly as the Ferrari found its feet on those hard compound tyres. Lando Norris now has a 4-second gap to contend with. There are 18 laps left to go. So he's got the opportunity to go for it, but it's going to get there. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky for Lando Norris. But here he is, Carlos Sainz leading the Grand Prix, has led the Grand Prix very, very well, it has to be said. It's been a dominant display from the Spanish driver. And now is looking to get in and out of the pits and stay in the lead of this one. His teammate 25 seconds behind as they came into the pits. Where is he going to be as they come out? Here's Oscar Piastri battling with Fernando Alonso, though. And Oscar Piastri up the inside. And Alonso gives him the place because Alonso is going to box. So not too much of a fight there from the Spaniard. Carlos Sainz comes out 7 seconds in the lead. Wow. Oh, no, that's dropped to 6 seconds very quickly. I feel like that was the timer maybe being a little bit weird. But 6 seconds still. Alonso out. Let's see then. Where is Alonso going to be? You hope he's going to sit in just behind Sergio Perez. Yeah, definitely will. Sit just behind Sergio Perez. Lance Stroll, 30-odd seconds off the Mexican. Aye. Yuki Tsunoda getting past Pierre Gasly. Oh, and pushing Pierre Gasly a little bit wide there, Yuki Tsunoda. They're friends off the track, but on the track, a little bit of bite from Yuki Tsunoda there, but holding on to 9th place incredibly well. The gap to Nico Hülkenberg down to 1.5 seconds, though. It's going to be close. Kevin Magnussen also putting Alex Albon under pressure. So the Williams was looking like Albon was in the fight for the points, but now the Hasses have come back to bite. Albon on much older tyres, pitted early in the Williams, and Williams not sure about that strategy now, looking at it in hindsight. Safety car would not be good for a McLaren. Why not? Oh, for Sergio Perez, yeah. True. Although George Russell is ahead of Perez. Oh, it hasn't pitted yet. I was like, what? No, hasn't pitted yet, has George Russell. So Russell's slightly out of position there. Will drop back a considerable margin unless he decides to not pit. Maybe he's going for a super long strategy, George Russell. Hoping for a safety car, maybe? Tyres are feeling good, says George Russell. Okay. Maybe George Russell's going to go to the end on these set of tyres then. So, Sergio Perez, 5 seconds off of him. Alonso, 12 seconds off of Russell. In 15 laps, you know what? It's going to have to make up a second a lap, is Fernando Alonso. So, maybe George Russell might be able to just about make this work and actually keep the place in front of the Spaniard. Be very interesting to see. Lando Norris sets the fastest lap of the race, but then Oscar Piastri sets that too. Lando Norris, though, still 4 seconds off the back of Charles Leclerc. It did feel like that window of opportunity for McLaren to pit and come out just behind Leclerc. It was when Sergio Perez pitted. When Sergio Perez pitted, I felt like McLaren should have reacted then. But they just waited a little bit too long, in my opinion. But, you know, they've got a lot more data than I have, and I'm looking at it in hindsight. So, it's difficult to judge. Hamilton and Verstappen both out of the race, yeah. Reminds you of something. Well, you know. Ferrari on it, though. Well, I say Ferrari. Carlos Sainz on it. Absolutely on it. Kevin Magnussen, though, staring at the back of a Williams. It'd be interesting to see here. Kevin Magnussen, no, is on slightly older tyres than Nico Hülkenberg. I was thinking, if Kevin Magnussen can get past Alex Albon just like that, then would he be able to catch the back of his teammate? But Magnussen gets around the outside of Alex Albon, gets a round of applause as well, and moves up into 11th place. The Hasses on the fringe of points. Whew. Well, Hülkenberg in the points. Magnussen on the fringe. Yuki Tsunoda being the best of the rest. Only 3 seconds off the back of Lance Stroll. Although Lance Stroll is 50-odd seconds off the lead, so... Potato. 10 seconds the gap, actually, between Alonso and Stroll. Yeah, maybe Stroll just hasn't been that great. Maybe in hindsight, Stroll's just not been amazing. Carlos Sainz, yeah, took the lead in lap 3, remember. Has led since. Dominant display from the Spaniard. And a replay of Max Verstappen's rear left tyre just obliterating itself as he came round the penultimate corner. And yeah, too much carbon fibre all over the place. George Russell has come in. Didn't want to risk it. Didn't want to risk it in the end. Maybe it was his lap times. What was it, a 122? Yeah, Sergio Perez at 120.7. And there is Fernando Alonso is going to take 6th place, and George Russell slots back in to where he's just kind of been running all day in that Aston Martin sandwich. And George Russell then comes out 3 seconds behind Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso, 5 laps he's done on those hard compound tyres, so they're going to hold on. And unfortunately, that's going to be that done. I'm just trying to look if there's any real battles that are going to play out in this final stint. It feels like the middle stint was the one where everything shuffled into position for everybody. We saw the overtakes. Fastest lap again from Lando Norris, but still 3 seconds, nearly 4 seconds off the back of Charles Leclerc. It's the fastest lap, but it's, it's not really catching the back of Charles Leclerc quickly enough. And Charles Leclerc just seems like he's kind of keeping Lando Norris at that kind of 4-second mark. Carlos Sainz the same, just sort of keeping his teammate at around 5 seconds or so. But let's see what Lando Norris can do. Piastri then 8 seconds behind. 11 seconds the gap to Perez. And Perez hasn't been able to close that gap considerably. So that's going to stay where that is. Alonso's going to stay in 6th, kind of running around by himself. Just don't think that George Russell is going to be able to close that gap on very similar hard compound tyres in the Mercedes car. Then you've got Lance Stroll in 8th place. You've got Yuki Tsunoda 9th place, just rolling around in 9th place as well. Yuki Tsunoda's just done that perfectly, you could imagine, inside the RB car. Just running around that point scoring position the entire Grand Prix. And 10th place for Nico Hülkenberg. And that's not really under threat because his teammate is behind, being the rear gunner in this Haas 1-2 combination that they seem to be running in recent races. Saudi Arabia, it worked perfectly, with Kevin Magnussen being the defender in this, with Hülkenberg being in front and picking up the point. They're going to do it again, but RB are going to take 6th place in the championship. Of course, 2 points for Tsunoda, but the higher finish as well in 9th place. It's going to be 2 points to Haas. And then 0 for the Alpines, the Williamses, and the Stake cars. So it's looking like Haas versus RB for 6th place in the championship. Ferrari are going to do a good job here, getting that 1-2, puts them in a nice position to just continue their trajectory towards being the 2nd fastest team in 2024. Good set of points for McLaren, you have to say, as well, actually. Puts them properly in 3rd place. And looking at George Russell kind of being the only point-scoring Mercedes, well, the only Mercedes that is left in the race, Mercedes might be looking at a 4th place finish in the Constructors' Championship if things stay as they are. And Aston Martin, clearly the 5th fastest car, Aston Martin, and will remain 5th in the Constructors. Ooh, crossing the pit lane. Ouch. That is a 5-second penalty for Pierre Gasly, who is down in 14th place. And that will actually drop him behind Bottas and Joe, by the looks of things. So the Alpines is still just absolutely dropping off a cliff. 101 likes, hit the goal. Thank you so much, Not Him, for letting me know. Haven't been following. But 100 likes is indeed the goal, and we've smashed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are new here, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't hit the like button, join the other 100 people that have. If 100 people like it, surely you should as well. That's how things work, isn't it? No, massively appreciative to everybody for just joining. The best thing that you can do to support the channel, honestly, is just to watch the videos. It's the main thing that keeps the channel afloat and allows me to, well, just continue my passion for making you guys more and more content. Moving towards that 100,000 subscriber trajectory. Is it a possibility in 2024? We'll have to wait and see. Lando Norris pumps in another fastest lap, but still 3.7 seconds the gap to Charles Leclerc. It's looking like the top 10 is set in stone. Nico Hülkenberg is just falling off the back of Yuki Tsunoda a little bit. I think the Japanese driver's just been given the hurry up a touch, and it's just pushed it. Let's have a little look then. Yeah, Gasly just, I don't know why he does that. Just moves over to the left way too early. He did it in qualifying as well. Weird. 5-second penalty for Pierre Gasly for something that he did yesterday as well, and just continues to do. Bit of a strange one. Tell you what, George Russell has closed the gap to a second. I was expecting that battle to be done and dusted. I felt like with 10 laps left to go, our top 10 was basically signed, sealed, and delivered. But I think George Russell might be the only mover and shaker in the top 10 here. Because as I was saying, Hülkenberg just falling off the back of Tsunoda a little bit. I think Tsunoda's been given the hurry up. And the Japanese driver's been holding on to those tyres a little bit. Because you can see there a 121.3 from Tsunoda last time around. A 121.7 from Hülkenberg. So Tsunoda just getting in it. I look very much like Max Foch. Thanks. Like, I get that a lot, actually. A weird amount. What happened to Max? Brake failure. Rear right brake failure for Max Verstappen. And that was done and dusted. I thought the soft tyres are faster but degrade quicker. Yeah, you're spot on there, Rose. Soft tyres are the quickest tyre that you can have on the car. But in terms of a race tyre, they don't last long enough to warrant, because you've got to remember, a pit stop costs you 20 seconds. So every time you go into the pits, you lose 20 seconds. So even if you're on the faster tyre, that faster tyre has to gain you 20 seconds for it to be worthwhile if you're going to do an extra stop compared to everybody else. So you can see everybody has done 2 pit stops. Whereas if you'd have gone to the soft compound tyre, you'd have probably had to do 3 pit stops. And therefore, is the soft compound tyre going to gain you 20 seconds? And the likelihood is no. So that's why, yeah, most people opt for the medium and hard tyres during the races. They're kind of, the soft tyre is more of a qualifying tyre. The line means they were a scrubbed set or a used set of tyres. before they put them on. So it would have mean that they were maybe used in a free practice session for a lap or two before they were strapped onto the car during the Grand Prix. In lap, did Max retire? Lap 3. So very, very early on. It was an issue that he had from the start, by the looks of things. What's my favourite team? I'm a McLaren boy. McLaren fan. On the hat as well. Nico Hulkenberg holding on to 10th place, though. Laurent Mekies, the RB team principal, of course, took over from Franz Tost. Do miss Franz. Franz was on the grid for 20 plus years in that second Red Bull team. But Laurent Mekies moved over from Ferrari, doing a job. And Yuki Tsunoda holding on to points. 7 laps left to go in this one. And Tsunoda looking very, very comfortable indeed. The gap to Nico Hulkenberg now 3, nearly 4 seconds. And another lap that was quicker from the RB driver. Tsunoda basically guaranteed those points as long as nothing goes wrong. Williams next year is our year. Well, Williams are actually aiming for 2026. James Vowles has said that he doesn't really care what happens in 2024 or 2025. His aim is 2026 and to be in a competitive position for the regulation change. Daniel Ricciardo is finished. No, he's in 13th still. Oh, you mean his career? Yes. Current driver of the day vote. Carlos Sainz, 36% driver of the day. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Just absolutely flying at this point is Carlos Sainz and continuing to just hold his teammate at the 5-second mark. The gap between the two of them continues to be there. In fact, what I'm going to do is pop this here. What I'd like you to do is over on the community tab, I've just put up the hot takes from this Grand Prix. I know we've got 5 laps left to go, but if you want to get involved, I do a live stream where I go through your guys' hot takes reacting to the Grand Prix. And if you want to get involved, head on over to the community tab. So hit the little link or open a new tab. Go to YouTube. Go to the channel. Over to the community tab. Bada bing. And get your hot takes in for this Grand Prix. Because I think there could be some spicy ones from the Grand Prix this morning. Head on over. Get your hot takes in. Because I need those for the live stream. And I'm going to be keeping an eye on them. I'm expecting some good hot takes to come in. 130 likes on the stream as well. Thank you guys so much for all of the support during the Australian Grand Prix. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and head on over. Get your hot takes in for the Australian Grand Prix. George Russell, though, now looking at the back of Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. This is the only real battle left to play out. It is Aston Martin, Mercedes-powered, with the Mercedes of George Russell behind. The gap, 0.6 seconds, 5 laps to go. And can George Russell pick up a 6th place finish? 6th place is pretty much the best you could have imagined George Russell getting, isn't it? And the Mercedes should be the quicker car here. DRS wide open for George Russell, closes the gap through that middle sector as they come into the final sector. DRS wide open again, but not quite. Tries to have a little look into turn 11, does George Russell, but not able to get past. Not going to do a hot take, but this is karma for Williams. That's a perfect hot take, Vettel. Get in there. Put it in. George Russell again looking down towards turn 1. Not quite within touching distance. Feel like turn 3 maybe is going to be the opportunity for George Russell. DRS open again. Not this time. Gonna wait for the second DRS detection zone through that middle sector once again is George Russell. Checo is still at 5. So it's not the car, is it? I think it's a combination, right? Max Verstappen drives the Red Bull exceptionally quickly. But Sergio Perez got kind of caught in traffic at the beginning of the Grand Prix. Sergio Perez's race was kind of done in that first stint, unfortunately. Got a little bit caught up. Couldn't quite get it done. Getting past the likes of George Russell. And then, yeah, just got a little bit stuck, did Sergio Perez. George Russell again, looking down towards turn 11. No, not this time. And he has 3 laps left to George Russell to try and make this move. Carlos Sainz on the radio. Tyres don't feel great now, says Carlos Sainz. He's just got to hold on for 3 more laps. And Charles Leclerc has lost a little bit of time in traffic to Alex Albon. Carlos Sainz as well. It's just they're trying to get through these back markers at this point. Ooh. F1 TV is overpriced. I think, considering the amount of content you get, and it's $30 a year. Oh, unless it's different in the US. Might be different in the US. But in the UK, Formula 1 TV is probably the best value you can get. It's £18, I want to say, for an entire year. And you get all of the races replayed, all of the races from hundreds of years ago. Carlos Sainz has just lost a 1.5 seconds to Charles Leclerc. Is it the back markers? Although Charles Leclerc's in the back markers as well. What is Carlos Sainz doing here? Carlos Sainz is losing time very, very swiftly. Here is, though, the race leader, Carlos Sainz. There's only a lap and a half left, though. And a lap and a half, 3.5 seconds, the gap. I was worried there for a moment, but I feel like the worry is ebbing away. Come on then, Carlos. Come on, Carlos. You deserve this. Led from lap 3 of the Grand Prix. Has done exceptionally good. Tyres are falling off a cliff, though, on Carlos Sainz's car. 3.5 seconds, though. The gap remains as we go into the final lap of the Grand Prix. Oh! And it's George Russell on the final lap of the Grand Prix. He's sideways. What's happened there? That's going to be a safety car, and that's going to be the end of it. Virtual safety car. George Russell's thrown away again. Virtual safety car, and the race is going to end under the virtual safety car. Might even be a red flag here, because that car is in the middle of the track and almost upside down. Russell on the radio says he is okay. What happened there? George Russell on the final lap of a Grand Prix in a battle once again. Shades of Singapore. Shades of Singapore. Carlos Sainz is leading the Grand Prix. George Russell's in the wall. And that has opened the door for a double Haas points finish, by the way. That is Yuki Tsunoda up to 8th. Hulkenberg up to 9th. And Kevin Magnussen up to 10th. A double points finish for Haas. Haas, the team everybody said was washed, was done. They're finished. Goodness me. Double points finish. But here's Carlos Sainz then. A comfortable finish to the Grand Prix for the Spaniard. The virtual safety car is going to remain. And Carlos Sainz wants to celebrate with Charles Leclerc. And there it is. The Ferrari 1-2. The checkered flag is out and the Spaniard takes another victory. Whenever Max Verstappen falls, Carlos Sainz is there to pick up the pieces. He did it in Singapore. He does it again in Australia. It's Carlos Sainz with his second victory to ruin another Red Bull streak. Charles Leclerc picks up second place and Lando Norris a podium position for the McLaren team. And I told you, watch out for Australia. And it is Australia indeed, where the McLaren comes to life. Lando Norris third. Oscar Piastri coming around the final corner will finish in fourth place. It's Sergio Perez to finish in fifth. Had a little bit of a tough first stint, did Sergio Perez. And he's going to finish up in fifth. Alonso is in sixth place with Lance Stroll in seventh. Here's the replay then from George Russell. Finally, what happened? Oh, he's just lost it. He went underneath the rear wing of Fernando Alonso. Just didn't have the brakes. Got underneath a little bit of a squirm, and it's identical to what Alex Albon did here last year. George Russell on the brakes, couldn't make the corner, and smashes into the wall once again on the final lap of a Grand Prix. We see George Russell stack his Mercedes car. And there it is then. The virtual safety car finishes the Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz on the radio, victorious in Australia. To run down the top 10 then, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri are top 4. Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, with Sergio Perez in 5th place after Max Verstappen retired on lap 3 of the Grand Prix. We then have 2 Aston Martins in 6th and 7th place. And then both of the Mercedes cars missing out. George Russell retiring on the penultimate lap. Lewis Hamilton retiring on lap 8 of the Grand Prix has just opened the door for Yuki Tsunoda to finish in 8th place. An astonishing drive from the Japanese driver. Just looked comfortable in the points all afternoon long. Hülkenberg in 9th place. Kevin Magnussen in 10th. Means a double points finish. A double points finish for the Haas team. That is 2 points finishes in a row. 3 points finishes from 6 races for the team. Goodness me, Haas are on an absolute flyer right now as we head out of Australia and towards Japan for round 4. Alex Albon, the closest to points, but didn't quite make it. Did Alex Albon. Daniel Ricciardo in 12th place. Pierre Gasly finishes in 13th after that 5-second penalty. Bottas and Zhou Guanyu in 14th and 15th place after some very, very slow stops once again for the Australian, for the stake team here in Australia. Some really, really poor pit stops. And Esteban Ocon had to pit a 3rd time. Some issues with the brake duct on his car as well. A visor getting stuck in there. Drops into 16th place. George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen not making it across the finish line in this one. And Carlos Sainz finally finds his place at the top of the podium. Finally gets his car into where it should be. And it is another victory for Carlos Sainz. Of course, out of a drive at the end of this year. Goodness me. What's happening is done. It's over. The Australian Grand Prix 2024 is finished once again. Charles Leclerc comes over to congratulate Carlos Sainz. And we have done it once again. Even if Logan Sargent drove, he would still be P20. I don't think so. I think he'd have probably finished P12, believe it or not, in and around there, because there was some absolutely horrid driving from Ricciardo, Gasly, Bottas and Zhou were also awful. Ocon was terrible. I feel like Logan Sargent would have probably finished in and around, P12, just behind his teammate. What happened to Russell? Just made a mistake. Turn 6. Just lost the rear end of the car. It's not really a mistake. It's so difficult to tell. We've only seen one replay of it. Whether it was a mechanical failure, whether it was a mistake, we'll kind of have to wait and see what George Russell has to say about it. Because it looked like he just lost all ability to brake at that point. Just lost any ability to stop. Carlos Sainz being told to go to the weighbridge and get weighed before he jumps into the Ferrari team. Don't think that's going to happen. Ferrari joyous at this. Thank you guys so much for watching. What happened to Max? A brake failure on lap 3. What happened to Lewis? An engine failure on lap 8. George Russell also joined the DNF club at the back there with a race-ending collision with the wall on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. But there we go. How do I think Tsunoda did? Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Absolutely beautiful. Both Hasses in the points. Exceptional work. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel as well. Head over to the community tab. Get your hot takes in for this Australian Grand Prix. I'm going to be back live later on today with those hot takes. So make sure you're subscribed for that one. Thank you guys so much. I will see you live in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, the Japanese Grand Prix, isn't it? No race next weekend. And I will be back for the Japanese Grand Prix, covering qualifying and the race live once again for you guys. But where I'll end things. Thank you guys so much as ever. And I will see you